and try this proven path. 'Tis time away from the everyday. Come and play and enjoy your stay in Bath.
Well, Mrs. Malaprop to me is one of the three great comic characters in literature, along with Don Quixote and Falstaff. And I mean, she's larger than life. She gave us the word malapropism. But the interesting thing is the original play, she was kind of a one-dimensional figure of ridicule. And what we thought would be interesting for today's audience, she's an older woman looking for love, and that's someone everyone can identify with, that will resonate in the age where we have Match.com for 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds. And now that I'm getting old enough to appreciate the fact that older people can like love too. So we created a character, we hope, that's more three-dimensional and has levels and is more sympathetic than the original Mrs. Malaprop. And with Harriet Harris, we have the perfect person for that because she's can be hilarious and then she can be tremendously touching.
I was drawn to the project because of Pete. I have always wanted to work with him. We've been mutual admirers of each other's work. I was thrilled when he asked me to do this. We had talked about a couple other projects, and I kept on saying, I don't know, I know. But for this one, I knew that we had hit something because it is comic gold, and because it also stretched me in a different way. As a restoration comedy, you know, every composer looks for different styles and challenges when they're taking on a new project. And for me, this was very refreshing, and it allowed me to kind of lace my score with kind of a classical feel. And we actually had a lot of conversations about that. Should we go for more of a contemporary rock thing, or should we kind of or stay true to the period? And we decided to stay true to the period, and I think that ultimately was the better option for us.
Yeah, definitely, and it makes it interesting today when you have a lot of rock scores like Head Over Heels,
right,
in that time period. But this feels legitimate, and we actually have a local string quartet playing in the orchestra, which is fantastic.
Right. The Elegant String Quartet is actually, their 4 members plus 3 others are making up our band, and it gives a tonality and a conceit to the piece that I think really works.
I tend to write an entire first draft before I ever give it to a composer because I want to be sure that it works. And in Steve's case, I think this is like the 3rd or 4th project I gave him, and this is the first one he liked. So that's the process. I give him a complete lyric, and with Steve, he says, "Oh, this is great. Now give me a B section that does this, and a C section that does that." He writes very, very catchy melodies, so it's always fun and always a challenge to match my words to his music.
Pete is an incredibly supportive collaborator and partner. He is incredibly prolific. He writes very quickly. I mean, we could be on the phone. He could have given me a lyric in the morning. I said it in the afternoon. I sent it to him, and the next day, it's completely different. And he's also the best critiquer of his own work. He'll keep on perfecting something until he feels comfortable with it, and he just gets better and better in his writing. And what I love, because I'm a pretty efficient writer and I'm a pretty quick writer, and he matches that. So he's wonderful to work with that way. And he also indulges me, with all of my little changes that I want and ask for. But we're a good team that way. And also I can be a very difficult self-critic.
No.
And I can be. And he's the one that says, no, I like that. Don't change that, And so we both give each other permission to be our best creatively, and I love that. Aside from our own particular working process, there's also the process of getting your show to a Bristol Riverside Theater. You want to talk about that and the readings and all of the fun we had with that?
We did 3 or 4 readings, and it was in pretty good shape to begin with, but we kept finding little things that we could make better. And in fact, Harriet Harris and Ed Dixon, who are in this show. We're in 3 of our readings already.
A reading, by the way, is it's a 29-hour process that Actors Equity allows, and you can get the biggest and greatest actors on Broadway and TV and Hollywood to come to do this because it's a great learning experience for them, and it gives you a chance to kind of test out your show with them reading the script and just music stands and a piano. And that's how it's been done, frankly, ever since Michael Bennett kind of invented the form during a chorus line. And like Pete said, we had 4 opportunities, 4 readings, and by our 4th reading, when was that, last year?
Yeah.
Last year, we kind of knew that the show was set, and that's the reading that Bristol Riverside Theater came to, and Susan Atkinson and Keith Baker saw the show and said, wow, we love this, and we would like to do it. And so, of course, that's the moment that every writing team dreams about.
And,
right?
and by the way, I mean, this theater is perfect for the show because it's intimate. It's all about the language. We came up here to see it when they were interested in doing it and just loved the theater. So.
We loved it, and we love Susan and Keith, and they have been, both Pete and I have done a lot of shows in a lot of theaters. This has been, as I said, one of the most joyful, incredibly collaborative, creative experiences we've ever had. And everybody at BRT has been so welcoming and accommodating and have the same vision that we have for the show. And it's just been phenomenal. For me, it's a musical moment. My Heart Has a Mind of Its Own is a ballad that our 4 female leads sing in Act 2 towards the end of the show. And to me, it summarizes the essence of what this show is about.
Yeah.
Which is, you're never too old to look for love and to hope for love and to hope for that relationship that makes you whole and makes you happy. And that, I think it's a universal message.
Yeah.
Right? And in that moment, combined with these 4 wonderful women that we have singing this song, and they're not only magnificent performers, but they sing it with such heart and conviction. And I think everybody in the audience is going, especially the women in the audience, are going to sit there and go, oh my gosh, yes, who doesn't search for love and who doesn't want love at any age, right? So that to me is my favorite moment.
Yeah, I mean, to me, in a musical, you know, there's a song that is the reason you write the musical, and that's the song. From the last reading, it's interesting, we tried to cut a song out in the last reading called I Love Her Butt, and everyone who came to the reading said, wait a minute, where's that song? We love that song. So then we worked it back in. I think this time, in the rehearsal process, we have a song called Mad About You that was supposed to end with just Falkland, the character of Falkland, Jim Weitzer playing him, singing it by himself. And Charlotte Maltby was so good, we said, no, we have to figure out a way to get her back in to sing together with him at the end.
The changes are small, they're cosmetic, and by and large, the show that we did last year at our last reading is the show that audiences are going to see. And I think getting back to readings are an opportunity for the authors to really work out the dramaturgical storytelling kinks and musical kinks. And I think over the period, mind you, how long have we been working on The Rival? 6 years?
Yeah, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. So over 6 years, you know, you kind of figure out what you're going to keep, you know, what's the keeper and what are you going to discard. So what you're seeing is, you know, I guess the evolution of the process for us. So we're pretty happy with what we have now.
Yeah, the other thing I'd mention is, you know, Eric Tucker, the director,
Oh,
he's a terrific director. He's very innovative. So, you know, I was a little nervous about that, but he comes up with a lot of really interesting ideas
Yes.
that end up adding a lot to the show. You know, like they form at one point a carriage and
Yeah.
a fountain, and you know, he comes up with these great
a
things.
human carriage and a human fountain.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. And Jason Sparks, our choreographer, is kind of the yin to his yang, and he kind of realizes the execution of some of these great innovative ideas. So we couldn't be happier with the entire creative team,
Yeah.
both at BRT and with Eric and Jason and Bruce and Steve.
Well, I think some of the challenges is that we're dealing with a new work, and when you're dealing with new work, you have so many opportunities to sort of create and mold. I mean, in a way, challenges are more like opportunities to me. The fact that we have this new musical that's being produced for the very first time of this old story, and bringing that to life is in itself, a challenge full of opportunities, and sort of cracking open this text and the music and trying to figure out how we're going to tell the story and how we're going to create a world and how we're going to make all of this seamlessly come together at BRTs. I mean, it's been thrilling. I don't know if I would say it's a challenge as much as it's just been fun. When it comes to the trapdoor, we're limited by the architecture of the space. As most people around here, as most folks in Bristol know, the theater has a history, and a lot of that history remains. So what is under the stage can't really change, and we had to form the trapdoors where the space would let us put them, because you can't go through cinder block. Well, of course, the period was a huge influence for the set, and then, of course, the vision of the director Eric Tucker, who was mostly inspired by the space of BRT, and he really wanted this set to feel as if it was coming from the space, as if we have taken Bristol Riverside Theatre as an empty space and then magically transform it into this neoclassical world. We have sort of these walls that we've had to put in to create space, to create offstage space, because otherwise we wouldn't have offstage space. But the goal is to make the set look like the theater. I think the back wall, what we've done on the back wall, is pretty nifty. We have this sort of aged mural on the back wall, but it reveals some surprises towards the end of the play.
The challenges of the production, namely, I think what stands out is our very, very fast process. We rehearsed for about a week and a half in New York City, and then we came and had a couple days here, and then we went into tech. So that's a very fast process when you're working on not only something new, but a musical, where there's so many moving parts. Obviously, you've got music and text, and so we're dealing with an orchestra, and this particular production has a lot of moving pieces of furniture and windows and set pieces, kind of wheeling in and out, and we weren't able to really rehearse with a lot of stuff on wheels, so we were doing that at the very end of the process, going into tech, and so still discovering things in tech. That stuff's pretty challenging because everybody's trying to, get it ready for opening, and stress can be high, and so it's sort of like, how do you keep everybody calm and move forward and just get it done? But that was, I think, our time limit was the most stressful part of this. I feel like whenever I work with something that's been adapted from another work, from another piece of literature or another play, novel, whatever it is, it's interesting when I talk to people who know the original or the source material, and then they see something that has been adapted. And for those people, I think it's interesting because they find things that are both different and alike, and how you sort of take a play like that, especially a very old play, and make it into a musical for a modern audience. And so that's one thing. Of course, that's not necessary that you know that. I mean, you can come in and love this even if you don't know the material. And I actually would say, I feel like because I've worked with those kinds of adaptations before, sometimes people feel nervous that they need to know the original before they come to something like this, and they absolutely don't need to. They really they're getting the rivals, and so they don't have to feel nervous if they don't know the original play. I think that's important to know. They can sit back and they're going to get a pretty special evening. I think my favorite part of the show is Mrs. Malaprop as a character. To me, is so interesting. She's such a complex human, and I feel like she's been written in a way that there's a lot for an actor to pull from. Not only does she get to be really funny, because there's this sort of running joke of how she talks and her choice of words, which we all know, but her arc in the show and what she's dealing with personally in terms of her search for love and her age and where she is in life is very touching. And I think a lot of people in the audience will find her very accessible, and Sir Anthony as well. And it just so happens we have two really beautiful actors in those roles, Ed Dixon and Harriet Harris. And so they really win you over right away. You know, you're watching two people who've been acting for a long time, and they are spectacular. So it's hard for that not to be my favorite thing, because I love watching actors like that work. But we're fortunate in that we really have a fantastic cast all the way around.
It's a wonderful story. I think a lot of people could use a little romance and comedy right now. It's light, it's heartwarming, and it's truly been a labor of love for everyone involved.
I think people should come see it because it is something new. I think it's rare. It's rare, I feel, to find new material in the theater that's really compelling and really good and makes you want to come back. And I think Stephen and Peter have written that. They've written something special. It's a little old-fashioned in its feel, and there's not a lot of that going on right now. And it's very witty and smart. You know, it's really about the language and the words people choose, but then it's also so deeply about relationships.
It's an unknown musical, but everyone's heard of Mrs. Malaprop, which is interesting. If you haven't seen The Rivals, you've heard of Mrs. Malaprop. And as I say, I think what we do is we made her relevant and resonant with modern audiences.
I think what we're hoping for is the fact that people are going to come and they're going to go back to their friends and family and say, hey, you got to head over to Bristol Riverside Theater because there's something special going on there. And that's what happens. And, you know, through social media and word of mouth, you know, if something's good, people will buy. People will come see it. So that's our hope.
If you want adventure, then try this proven path. Take some time away from the everyday. Come and laugh, come and play, and enjoy your stay in Bath.
Friday on Cheers to You.
I named it quatrain because, first of all, a quatrain in poetry is a four-line segment of a poem, but it also uses four hops that produce this big flavor.
New episodes of Cheers to You every Friday at couriertimes.com.
Game On is brought to you by the Bucks County Community College.
East quarterback Evan O'Donnell threw for 137 yards. He had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown on a great catch by Anthony Giordano in the second half. St. East improves to 1-1 with the win, while Hatboro slips to 0-2.
This week on Navigating Life,
I'm happy to say I've got a world record. Now, it's easy to get a world record when you're 65 years old and 114 weight class. I don't have a whole lot of people.
Navigating Life at CourierTimes.com is brought to you by Pickering Manor. Tune in weekly for more Philly sports, a can't-miss podcast from sports columnist Tom Moore and host Patrick Berkery. They take a deep dive weekly on the Philadelphia sports scene, breaking down the latest on the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, college sports, and more. You can find more Philly sports on iTunes and Stitcher, and it's brought to you by the Bucks County Courier-Times, the Intelligencer, and the Burlington County Times.